Hello F11 members and welcome to part 2 of the fundamentals of post-production video tutorials for issue 70, November 2017. So in part 1 we were talking about lens corrections. In part 2 I'd like to take you through the processing of this picture from the trip to Brittany just recently, a beautiful evening at the Pointe de Penair, and you've got there in front of you on the left the picture straight out of the camera, unprocessed. On the right the finished image, all done in Lightroom. Not a huge difference, actually quite a simple picture to process, as they should all be in an ideal world. I find the best pictures usually are. So let's just start from scratch how the image came into Lightroom. So I'm going to go reset here and just apply the presets that would be done on import and work through the processing of this picture now. So I used a 0.6 ND grad to hold back the sky. I used a polarizer. It's just the last lovely twilight, very soft, subtle twilight coming through to sidelight the headland here, and I've got this nice sort of semicircular wave motion there, which is quite an interesting touch in the composition. So here we go, the first thing I'm going to do is actually look at whether the shot's dead level. With such a strong horizon in the image, any kind of discrepancy is going to stand out. So I'm going to use Lightroom's down here in the transform tab here. Just click on level there and it makes a slight adjustment. It always amazes me, despite the fact I use the spirit level in the camera quite attentive to that, that sometimes it's not quite level. And with seascapes like this with such a strong horizon, it's really going to stand out. But that's dealt with now. So as usual, I'm going to look at my black and my white points as a starting point. And so first of all, I hold down the Alt key and move my white slider to the right until I start to clip highlights. And that's as far as I can go with my blacks. Same with, whites. Same with my blacks. Okay. And that's them dealt with. Just come back on the blacks a little bit. And next thing I want to do is I'm just looking at these shadows in this part of the image there, and I'm just going to boost a little bit of the detail there. So I'm just going to come up on my shadows just a touch to +16. And I'm going to pull my whites back a touch, my highlights back a touch here. Again, very little, just bringing in the detail here on that image, on that part of the image. The image itself, while it's a lovely histogram with a really nice range of tones there, it's all just too bright at the moment. So I'm now going to pull back my exposure until I get the kind of density and richness that I want. And that's looking pretty good to me, I reckon. Now the thing to consider is my color balance. As you know from previous editions, I very, very rarely alter that. Interestingly though, all rules are made to be broken. I'm just going to experiment with what different looks with going with an auto would do. Auto white balance there has basically looked at the image and decided it's too blue because of that predominance of blue in the shot, and it's given it a white balance of 5,600 Kelvin, which has warmed up those cliffs nicely, but it's suppressed the blue in the skies there. Do you know what I'm always interested in is, if I go back to how it's shot, is this. So I had daylight white balance set in camera, as I always do, and it's imported it at 5,100. The interesting thing is that value changes with different cameras. Some are 5,200, some are 5,050. I could, of course, standardize it if I want to, but I'm not going to lose sleep over the odd 50 Kelvin of white balance. And yet again, I'm going to just leave that white balance as is. If I wanted to, I could use this color picker here and click on this white in the rocks here and just say, I want that white to be perfect white, and click on that. And it would adjust the white balance to suit there. But there again, it's warmed up the cliffs nicely, but left the sea looking again a bit insipid. So I'm going to go back to as shot. But I should stress, with all of these deliberations regarding color balance, it really is totally subjective. You're the photographer, you're the one who needs to decide on these things. I operate on the basis of if in doubt, do nothing, so I'm not going to change the color balance at all there. As I mentioned before in the series, in part 1, I was looking at my lens corrections here, and I've chosen to apply, in this particular case, my profile corrections. I've applied chromatic aberration correction or removal, but I'm not going for the profile corrections to take out the distortion. I'm going to leave them in there. Okay, that again is a completely subjective decision to make. Last thing I want to do really is just, I'm looking at the sky there, and I'm going to use the grad tool here. I'm going to hold down my shift key and just bring in a grad on the sky, touch, fairly severe grad, and I'm just going to use this to add a bit of contrast to the sky, just a touch, round about 12 of contrast there, just to give it a little bit of an edge. If I go too far, it makes the colours too gaudy. I just want to give it a bit of punch there in the sky. And that's done. Now I stand back and I look at where I am with this picture. There's the before, there's the after. Not a huge difference, but subtle changes. I'm very pleased with this picture. I like it a lot. And really, that's it. It's a very simple image to process, as they all should be. I could, of course, have chosen to not use a grad filter and merged exposures, but there's something really satisfying about doing it all in camera and then having such a simple job of post-production to do here. So that's it for this month. Please do send in your suggestions about what you'd like to see in future issues of the F11 Photography magazine.